Welcome to Reddit Reads r/ProRevenge. Our first Reddit post is from Mooks. Not my revenge, but my professor against cheaters. I took the final for an engineering class this morning. Usually one or two people will go to the bathroom during class, however, for totally unknown reasons, about half of the class needed to use the restroom during the exam. Obviously, a vast majority of them were looking up the answers on their phones. This irritated me, but I just stayed focused and barely finished since it was a hard exam. I remembered that there was one particular problem that was only barely related to the stuff. I didn't fret over it too much though, since that part was only 5 points out of 100. Well, our professor, who is on the older side, and I would have thought was somewhat ignorant of technology, sent us an email just now explaining his diabolical plan to catch cheaters. Many of the students in this class use Chegg, a website that has answers to lots of homework questions if you're not familiar. To be fair, I have an account too, though I only used it for studying and checking homework solutions. Anyway, he explained that he was tired of people going to the bathroom and looking up answers on their phones, so he made the question I mentioned earlier as a trap. He purposely made Part B impossible to solve, and about a month before the final, he got a TA with a Chegg account to ask the exact question, which was distinctly worded to be unique. He then created his own Chegg account and answered the question with a bullshit solution that seems right at first glance, but is actually fundamentally flawed and very unlikely that someone would make the same assumptions and mistakes independently. He said that out of 99 exams, 14 of them fell for the trap, and that everyone who had his wrong solution on their exam was given a 0 and reported to the university for violating the academic honor pledge they signed on the front. He also sent an email to all the other professors in our department giving them the list of cheaters. Edit: I forgot to mention he gave full credit on Part B of the question to everyone else. Edit: too high guys, I'm writing this 5 months after the initial post. I'm glad this post is getting attention again, and I'm once again receiving messages from people wanting to get in touch with the professor or students from the class, so now that this post has run its initial course, I'll burst everyone's bubble by admitting that I mostly made this story up. It's based on a real incident that happened in my department a couple years ago, but I wasn't in the class personally. I only heard about it third-hand from someone I didn't know that well. So while the general plot and end result of the story is true, I changed some details to keep the professor and school anonymous and took creative liberty in writing it from a first-person viewpoint. Unfortunately, the part about my department letting students go to the bathroom during exams with their phones was true, and is still true to this day, and to my knowledge the incident this is based on is the only time that a professor actually took a stand against this shitty policy. So yeah, I don't know the professor personally, since the class he taught is not part of my program's curriculum. Before anyone reports this for being fake, I will once again stress that while I changed the details, the actual events played out in a similar way, and the real professor did, in fact, get his revenge on the cheaters. This comment is from Rousis. Vast majority of my profs have students turn in their phones and leave their bags at the front of the room during exams to prevent this exact scenario. I've had a couple classes where you can't leave whatsoever until you hand in the exam. This comment is from Yopdone. In college, master's level heat transfer class. Professor gave a problem where the differential equation was impossible to solve. The entire class of masters and candidates came back with the same issue. Professor told all of us to go back and try again twice. After the third week of trying, he came back and said he finally tried the problem himself, and it was impossible to solve. Never felt more proud in my college career. This comment is from Rousis. I did witness an incident once following a lab practical exam. Earlier that year, the prof had mentioned that the exams stay roughly the same each year, which is why we aren't allowed to keep our graded practical sheets after learning of our scores. In the class following the exam, The prof took us in one by one to walk through our answers and get feedback on what we need to study. It went relatively quick with the exception of 3 or 4 students who walked out of the back room looking totally white in the face. Turns out said small group of students had tracked down a TA from last year and pooled money to buy the answer key from the TA. What they didn't know is that any TA who has worked with that professor is in on a scheme to catch cheaters, so they essentially revealed themselves even prior to taking the exam. Accordingly, the prof wrote 4 entirely new and unique exams only for those students who he was made aware of were trying to cheat. Needless to say, they failed the exams, were outed, and faced pretty gnarly academic punishment as a result. The reason for him writing 4 unique separate exams was he could tell who actually ended up trying to memorize and utilize the answer key. Of the 4 involved, only one of them remained in the class after that day, so I'm guessing he was the only one who had the brains to realize how stupid cheating that way was. He did, however, only score like a 65. Prof made those 4 exams inordinately difficult, and it tanked his grade. Now, a word from today's sponsor. Make sure to donate to my Patreon down in the description below to get early access to videos, participate in special patron-only events, and other goodies. Any amount of money is greatly appreciated. It makes it easier for me to make the content that I love making, and I know you guys love too. Now back to the video. Our next Reddit post is from Elra Bricks, dealing with a gas thief. I've shared this story before, and I'll share it again. Several years ago, I lived in the northwest coast of Puerto Rico. It's a very relaxed area with tons of good restaurants and lots of green space. My apartment was on a cliff not far from the water. The electric infrastructure was a bit old. Not a big deal, I had a gasoline generator. Enter a new neighbor. He lived 2 doors down from me and drove an amazing custom Chevy van from the 70s. All it needed was an epic airbrushed wizard on the side. Sadly, though, that's where anything good about him ended. I caught him taking the gas out of an orange jug he'd leave outside in case the generator ran out. Although I saw him do it and called him out on it, he denied it and played stupid. So after the second time, I took all of the gas in the jug, filled the generator with it, and put the rest in my car. I then went to the nearest gas station that had diesel and filled it up with diesel. A few days later, I am woken up by a tow truck backing up to pick up his now disabled van. I looked out the window and you could see the anger on his face. He moved out the next month. This comment is from Cynical Midge. Simple, effective, and to the point. Thumbs up D. This comment is from McShrimpton Shast. Both the revenge and the post. Thanks, Op. This comment is from Puzero. Wasn't the other guy worried about the unleaded mixing with whatever diesel was already in the truck's tank? Our next Reddit post is from Deleted. I had an office food thief, so I bought a nanny cam. A couple things about me that made it really suck to have a food thief. I have a lot of food allergies, so I can't just get lunch at the cafeteria or at a nearby restaurant. I have a new baby who I'm breastfeeding and who I pump for when I'm at work. You know how hungry pregnant people are. Yeah, the caloric requirement for breastfeeding is 1,200 calories higher. I am always hungry. Because I have a new baby, half the time I don't manage to show up at work with a lunch. I either run out of time to pack one, or if I did remember, I leave it on the counter. My solution to all of this was to leave lots of non-perishable snacks in my office, and also a lot of candy, because I also have a 3-year-old and therefore work is the only place I can shovel Skittles into my mouth without a little hand extending into my field of vision and a little voice saying please snacks that were specifically free of my allergens, some of which were specialty foods because of this. The type of specialty food that just doesn't taste as good as food that contains the allergen and also costs twice as much. Because I'm not getting a lot of sleep right now, I deserve nice things. So, because I'm not getting a lot of sleep right now, when I first came back from maternity leave, assembled my snack hoard, and started having things go missing, I genuinely thought I was just losing my mind. Boxes of candy were running out faster than I thought I was eating them. I'd come in the morning and things wouldn't be where I'd left them. At one point I brought a bag of chips to work, folded the rim of the bag down so I wasn't plunging my arm elbow deep into a grease pit, and then put a bag clip on it when I went home. I went, wow, I must be more tired than I thought, rolled the bag back down, and the next morning it was unrolled again. Just little things like that, almost every day, that made me go, wow, the possibly brain is worse than I thought. And then I got the flu. And I was out for a whole week. Left behind at the office was an almost-full box of Enjoy Life cookies, which are not enjoyable but are free of all major allergens, and are also $5 a box for like 12 sad little sand pies with some cinnamon on top. I ate one row of these cookies. And then I was out of the office for a week. For 1 week I was not eating any of my snack, but someone else was, because I came back to work, opened my box of cookies, and found one. There was one single solitary cookie left, and on further examination, the combination of these two things, the sheer freaking audacity it takes to open a new box so you can continue stealing from someone, on top of the consumption of almost a whole box of specialty cookies that aren't even good, enraged me enough that, after going to my boss and getting some vague promises about checking if the security cameras in my wing of the building are functional, not for my baby, for my snack hoard. Conveniently, it arrived the day before Valentine's Day. I set it up on top of a file cabinet looking down at my desk. On the desk, I laid out a fantastic spread of baked snacks. I got all my thief's favorites, and then I took it one step further. I bought myself a Valentine heart, broke the seal to make it more inviting, and left it out on my desk. The next morning, I came into some very obvious snack carnage. My thief had slowly been getting more brazen again, who opens a new box of something and opens it differently than the person they are stealing from, but this was just on another level. Individually wrapped things had been dumped out of their boxes. Bits of packaging had been thrown away. And yup, they'd eaten some of the Valentine candy. For shame, office thief. Don't you know that's from someone who loves me? I played back the video. All was quiet throughout most of the evening, and I was just watching the shadows lengthen as the sun slowly set through the hallway window. Shortly before midnight, the night janitor arrived and went right ahead and took a 12-minute break in my office, sitting in my chair, eating my food. I started taking screenshots. I got him shoveling candy into his mouth with full palm tulips intensity, pouring things out onto the desk to pick his favorite flavors, not even bothering to put them back where he found them. And yes, eating my goddamn Valentine's candy. Screenshots went directly to my boss in an email. I went directly to my boss's door to hover and grin and ask if he'd read my email. And I got assurances of a strongly worded email to the cleaning company and the barring of this particular employee from our place of business. I was also tactfully asked to please take my unauthorized spy camera home, which I did. I thought this was over until the girl who works the concession stand dropped by to thank me. Apparently, the food thief would start his shift just as she was closing down for the night and would try to get free coffee in that creepy guy way. And then one of the reception staff came by with the same sentiments. I'd never met the guy face to face, but apparently as a woman, it was not a fun experience to have. I'd shown my screenshots to a few coworkers whose eating of fever rabbits in long coats food had become office gossip by this point, and word had spread fast. I worked an earlier shift, so I didn't recognize him, but people whose shifts overlapped with his did. I hadn't told my husband about what I'd done because, when I came home raging about the blatant theft that had gone on while I'd Had the flu, his only response had been, "You really shouldn't be leaving food at work then." But when I came home with the nanny cam, I think this is the first time I've seen you stand up for yourself. I'm proud of you. You know what, Reddit? I'm proud of me too. This comment is from Chief Quinby. Last time, I had office food thief. I got wings from Kroger and soaked them in the spiciest peppers I could purchase. Then I baked them and coated them in a fine powder of the same pepper and left it to sit in the fridge with some sun-warmed ranch. This comment is from Lafidage. I work at a hospital. We had a doctor insist that any food in the fridge was free game, even if labeled. He would work the overnight shift and open people's lunch boxes and just take things. Many of us on the nursing staff told him several times to stop it. The higher-ups finally stepped in after he stole one of the management people's lunch. He never apologized to anyone, though. He even made a comment about a nurse's weight when she mentioned having to order something since her lunch was gone. This comment is from Vicious Sid. The ranch is the worst part of your comment. That was Reddit Reads r/ProRevenge. If you like this content, please subscribe and click the bell icon so you are notified of new uploads. We upload new videos every day. Also subscribe to our Patreon, as that will help us a lot. See you next time.